Prime Minister, Jordan had also challenges related to the Arab Springs, but you were able to handle this and also introduce inclusive politics. But if you look in your neighborhood, the situation in Iraq, no progress on a two-state solution with the Palestinians, and having received 1.2 or 3 million Syrian refugees, 20% of your population are now refugees. If you look at the picture I know just painted from Cold War to hot peace, what is Jordan's view on this, and what is your contribution? Because you're a very respected country, and also His Majesty, can you break the impasse?
Thank you, Borja, for this. I'm delighted to be at the WEF with distinguished colleagues and with such great participation. You asked a very important question. Is there still a possibility to move towards peace, prosperity for the world and the region? And I think part of the answer depends on really evaluating what we did in the last decade. And let's not fool ourselves. What we did in the last decade on a global level did not help peace, did not help prosperity, and did not help the region contribute positively to the world, and spillovers all over the place. Now, we need to draw some lessons from the last decade and really make this decade we're in contribute to these values. We've tried, the world has tried to ignore as much as possible the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, thinking of other side battles to carry. We've dealt with Qaeda and then ISIS as if by defeating them, we are defeating terrorism. We've won battles, but we did not win the wars. We need to change the environment in which extremism flourishes so that we don't have ISIS version 3 and ISIS version 4 going forward. As you mentioned, this is a region youth oriented. The average age in the Arab world is around 35 years old. High unemployment. We need to engage youth and hear their voices, both politically and economically. And we need to deal with the spillovers of the battles in the region in terms of refugees, and really re-examine the model where we constantly undermine countries' sovereignty and boundaries and etc. So we have to be very careful about the sorts of interventions, regional and global, that we do. Jordan, as you said, has presented a model that shows political and economic resilience, and we can talk more about that. But essentially, we really need to question many of the assumptions we've had over the last decade, and just at least not repeat the mistakes, and hopefully do the right thing going forward. This is a country that's got 20% of its population now as refugees, surrounded by closed borders and conflicts, etc. But in the midst of all of this, our exports have grown around 9%. Our tourism has grown around 10% in 2019, in the circumstances we see. Our placement on doing business indicators have jumped 23 steps. On the PISA tests of reading and science and math, we've among the top 3 countries in the transformation that we have done. Our IT numbers, the innovation numbers, it's one of the top countries, 23rd country in access to skilled. Last year in the WEF in Jordan, the top 100 countries, the top 100 companies in the region, my startups, 27 of them were from Jordan, when we represent 3% of the population. So we are moving in the right direction under these circumstances. But let me just, half a minute.
Have 2 minutes and 30 seconds
Ultimately,
left.
the economy and politics of the region are connected. I want to go back to something very important that Jane has said, and thank you for your testimony on Jordan. But the more important, when we go tactical, not only do we lose the strategic view, but we also lose the principles. If we forget the principle that Palestinians' aspirations for a state of their own is a legitimate one, and we have to work on it, we lose a major battle, and we provide weapons to all extremist groups in all over the world that say we are there to liberate Palestine. When we don't respect sovereignty of countries and the integrity of their borders, we're asking for trouble. When we don't bring the factions of the country and say, okay, you come up with the solution, we're asking for trouble. And when we don't support countries that host refugees, Jordan, 2.4 billion is our cost of refugees per year. And this is by the World Bank, not by the government of Jordan. We're getting about 42% of that cost. What is the message in principle that we are sending to countries that are opening their arms to refugees? This is not a Jordan problem. This is a global problem. And this part of the world has decided it does not want to deal with refugees from the region. And that's their right. But then we have to get over the donor fatigue issue and deal with the real issue. So there are principles we have to agree on, and that will help us in this decade improve the situation politically and economically, and make sure we give voice to youth and empower them economically and politically.